From Brandeis University, welcome to Recall This Book, where we assemble scholars and writers from different disciplines to make sense of contemporary issues, problems, and events. I'm John Plotz, and our Recall This Book guest today is the remarkable Vanessa Smith, who is the author of, among many wonderful publications, Intimate Strangers, Friendship, Exchange, and Pacific Encounters, published in 2010. And Vanessa is many things at University of Sydney, including, are you chair of your department right now, Vanessa? Are you?
No, I'm not. Supposedly on sabbatical.
Oh my God, that's why she looks so incredibly relaxed. But Vanessa has been many things, but has been for a long time professor at Sydney, though she and I met at Cambridge University. We can almost say many decades ago. I guess we can say several decades ago we met when we were both in grad school. So Vanessa, welcome. And
thank you.
It's awesome to have an occasion to talk to you again. So this is another installment of our Books in Dark Times series, which, as you, dear listener, probably know by now, explicitly takes its inspiration from Hannah Arendt's Men in Dark Times, which proposes, quote, that even in the darkest of times, we have the right to expect some illumination, and that such illumination may well come less from theories and concepts than from the uncertain, flickering, and often weak light that some men and women in their lives and their works, and we mean books here when we say works, will kindle under almost all circumstances. So at this moment, we're interested in what brings people like Vanessa and like you, dear listener, comfort or joy or sustenance or engagement or illumination. So draw up a chair and listen, and then please do send us your own thoughts. We'd love to know what you are reading at this dark hour. So, okay, Vanessa, as you know, we start these conversations off with a few simple questions. So can I just get the ball rolling with those questions? Meaning, like, what have you been reading that gives you comfort? What have you been reading that gives you joy?
So, comfort. So as I mentioned, I'm supposed to be on sabbatical. So I had these plans for, travel conferences. You and I were going to meet at one of those conferences.
Yes.
So obviously not being able to do this is not the biggest problem that the world is facing, but there is some disappointment in all this kind of imagined travel not coming to pass. So one of the books that's really comforted me in that is Marion Milner's Eternity Sunrise, which is a later book of hers. And it's about, she always has these titles like, about not being able to do something, about not being able to paint, so on. But this one is effectively about not being able to keep a traditional travel diary. So she comes up with her own kind of psychoanalytically informed version of keeping a travel diary. So she says that, so she went on a series of trips to Greece in her 60s, and she tried to do that thing of sort of writing down a day-to-day account of what she was doing. And she said it totally went flat. And what she came to realize after a while was that she needed to wait until the travel had passed, I guess. And then she did something which she calls collecting the beads. So she waited for what she called it, like a bead of a kind of particularized, kind of quite luminous memory. And then the process was to kind of write down that memory, or, she could draw things as well. And she also worked through souvenirs she bought. I think that was her first way in. So she would just look at what she bought and think, why did I buy this odd collection of things? Or sometimes she'd picked up something like a feather on the ground or something like that.
Yeah.
And then she would retrospectively construct kind of connections between these things that was her special memories or her things.
Hey, Vanessa, can I just back you up? Because I'm in the unfortunate position of only knowing the one Marion Milner book that you wrote a wonderful article about, A Life of One's Own. But can you just fill in our listeners a little bit about who she is? She's such an interesting kind of transitional figure.
Yeah. She's I guess, she's my she's my homegirl, I guess. But so she's
I usually say she's my heart in that situation. Like that's how I talk about Willa Cather and Hannah Arendt. So
okay,
yeah,
okay.
so she's
Okay,
so
well,
she's
probably
your
more
homegirl.
appropriate than homegirl, Marion Miller. But anyway,
Yeah.
so I mean, she lived to be 98, 99, I think. So her life spanned the entire 20th century.
And she's British born, is that right?
British born, yeah. And she kind of came to people's attention, I guess, in the 1930s when she wrote A Life of One's Own.
Yeah.
Wrote and published A Life of One's Own, which, you know, as you know, is this attempt to, I guess, self-analyze. She was very anti-psychoanalytic at that point. So she came up with this method which involved just writing a journal of what made her happy, what makes her happy. Yeah,
I think that book is tremendous on lived experience. Like you totally
exactly. Yeah,
I never would have read it otherwise, but her description of playing ping pong, and she's not a good ping pong player or anything.
Yeah.
Her description of what it means to like have her hand telling her what to do before she thinks.
Exactly. Yeah.
Remarkable for that. So I love her in moment writing. So what you're describing with travel, the anti-travel diary, is so interesting to me because it sounds in a way antithetical to that, because so removed from the original now.
Yeah. So anyway, that's her. So yes. Later she writes this travel book, and I mean she's conscious of being, starting to be elderly and I suppose having some limitations, although she really didn't accept those. She was doing, dancing classes. Somebody rang her up, I think when she was in her 80s, and said, we have a free offer of ballroom dancing classes. You accept it now. She took it and went off, dancing and so on. So yeah.
But so Vanessa, I told you led into this by saying the reason you're reading it is related to kind of deferred or frustrated travel during your sabbatical, and I totally get that. But can we go further with the question of why it, given the reality of our world, which is so much more than just, I can't go on my sabbatical trip. Any thoughts about why this book would be satisfying and engaging to you, given the, unprecedented.
Because it's making me go back to, recent trips I've taken and sort of think through what was enjoyable about them. And I don't need to kind of, accumulate more experience. Like I can process, I guess, what I already had. Yeah. I fully acknowledge it's seriously not the biggest problem right now, but it's just that way of, you can, in this time you can kind of go back to old photo albums or something, and, you can feel quite melancholic, just as you regard yourself in that kind of mode of assumed freedom and privilege. And this is a way of returning to things in a more fruitful way, I think.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And so is that, when you read it, is the pleasure for you in seeing how she does it, or is the pleasure for you in what it then makes you do with your own trips? Like, does it allow you to?
Always both with Milner. That's what I love so much about her. I enjoy her prose. I think I love her writing, and I love watching what she does with, a period of life that is well beyond mine. But also, there's a real tangible kind of takeaway to reading her. You could try the exercises at home.
Follow along. So it's like the Jane Fonda workout video. Okay, that sounds good. Yeah.
The other one that's been perversely comforting. Do you know the book? I just love this book. I kind of got it as a critical thing when I was thinking about a project that never eventuated. Do you know, it's called Tormented Hope, 9 Hypochondriac Lives?
No, I don't know Tormented Hope. Oh my God.
It's so good. It's so good.
Wow.
It's by Brian Dillon.
Okay.
And it just kind of, It just kind of gives an account of 9 different hypochondriac figures, I
Oh
guess.
my God, that's amazing.
So it's like Boswell, Charles Darwin, interestingly,
Darwin, total.
um,
Yeah, could bear
uh,
a house.
Glenn Gould, Andy Warhol,
Uh-huh.
Glenn Gould. Yeah, yeah. Really, really nicely written and just, kind of also helpful in these times as
Tell me more about Glenn Gould, because I'm just about to watch 32 short films about Glenn Gould, because I totally worship him. What?
Uh,
No,
okay, well, he's the last one in the book, and I am rereading it now, and I
okay.
haven't kind of got
Okay,
to him.
never mind.
But
Yeah,
yeah, I
that's
mean, you know all about Darwin, so
I do know
that's
about Darwin. And do you know
yeah.
that? Have you
Florence
read?
Nightingale,
Oh
that's an
yeah,
interesting one.
absolutely.
Um,
Lyndon Strachey is really good on her
yeah,
hypochondria.
yeah, he quotes Strachey a lot. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
who was the other one you just said after Nightingale?
No, I didn't. I
Oh,
just
you didn't. Okay.
asked you what you were saying.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds great. And I was going to ask if you've read Sanditon lately, because you know it.
Uh, well, I've read it in the last 5 years, I guess, because I had to.
Remember that it's sort of about hypochondria. Like, I mean, basically the people coming to take cures. I mean, I guess in a way, Emma is about hypochondria too. Like, I mean,
Right. Yeah,
about people who
yeah,
enjoy their sickness. I guess it's
yeah,
literally enjoying your symptoms, right? I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, or somehow using them.
It's a form
There's
of
a there's a there's a
self-regulation.
purpose for them that
Yeah.
you are not quite
But
acknowledge.
it's a form of inward attention that it just seems, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it would be mean to call it perverse. It's like another form of inward attention that's different from the self-regard that philosophy sometimes teaches we're supposed to exercise, you know? Because
Right.
isn't that
Yes, that's
right? I mean, it's like
interesting.
attentiveness to
Yeah.
the body and
Although I do think that my interest in this book in this time is a bit perverse.
yeah,
It's
I can see that actually, right? It's like
it's like
what is
you
it
you
about
wake up and
mitochondria?
you sort of give
I
a
want whatever's
tiny cough. You give
yeah.
a tiny cough because you're clearing your throat. And you're like, oh.
I want antichondria. Like if there were an antichondria, I
Yeah,
could just cast on myself.
yeah. It is like an antidote somehow reading these
Yeah,
stories.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Vanessa, one of the topics that has emerged is the question of whether like I thought the most interesting question for people would be whether comfort and joy were related to one another. Like, you know, there would, because we're all critics, right? So there would be the notion that, or I mean, a lot of the people that I have been speaking with are people who are scholars. So kind of for a living, what you do is pick things apart. So I thought
Yeah.
that people would emphasize the antithetical quality of what gives you joy versus what gives you comfort. But it hasn't exactly played out like that. It's more like it's played out around people whose satisfaction comes from finding something that allows them fully to leave their world versus people who have wanted something that allows them to like understand their own situation better.
Right.
It
Okay.
sounds
So I
like
guess
your
I'd
book,
fall into category 2.
yeah. So
Um,
in some ways, category 1 too, right? Because there's the pleasure of her prose. What you're describing with Milner's prose is the
yeah.
pleasure of an immersion into like the artisanship of what she's creating, but definitely more like category 2 because it's enabling you to make sense of your situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I mean I enjoy the prose of Tormented Hope as well. It's beautifully written. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other person that I have been loving in this dark times, and
Yeah.
you probably know her work well, but she's a sort of American icon, and I wasn't familiar with her at all. I just came across one of her books in a secondhand shop and really liked the photo of her on cover. Is MFK Fisher. Do you know?
Oh yeah, I do.
Yeah,
How to
yeah.
cook a
So
woman. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I just came across that in a secondhand bookshop.
What about
Yeah.
any Australian writers?
Well, no, I mean, that we were going to do this thing about Helen Garner. So
Yeah. So Vanessa, let's talk about Helen Garner for 5 minutes. I'm so glad you mentioned her. Totally. Because I was
which
thinking
I don't find her very comforting or
no,
any of this.
no, but with the spare room, there's something very dry. I was thinking about late life books. I was thinking about The Spare Room. Isn't that what it's called? The one about her friend
Yes,
comes to die,
yes.
comes to her house to die.
Yeah,
'Cause I find that book actually, I do find it, well, comforting might be the wrong word. I find that a bracing book. It's like a very it's kind of rigorously honest, you know, about a total.
Oh, she's always rigorously honest, I think. Yeah.
So,
But
so if you had to pick one of her books, like if you were on a desert island, which one should we talk about? Should we talk about Children's Bach? Is that the one you would pick?
well, obviously that's the one I've reread recently. Yeah. But
I find her a good
not comforting. You find it comforting or joyful?
Well, no, I mean, I'm beginning to think the word comforting isn't the right word. Like my friend Sita, who I was just talking with earlier today, she said, well, I don't know what comforting means, but I can talk about the books that sustain and engage me. And I find Garner sustaining because she is so bracing. She's like, you know, she's like a very salt breeze in your face, you know? She kind of wakes you up, but I feel like she keeps you honest because she herself is so honest, and that makes you think harder. Like a book like The Children's Bach, which, you know, when it starts, I think, oh, right, okay, here are some people in a kind of unpleasant / unhappy / sordid situation. And your immediate instinct when you read that is to think, well, I mean, I'm glad that's not me, or that couldn't be me for the following reasons. And then she just kind of unfolds the situation and you find yourself realizing, oh, right, well, yeah, I mean, if that were my condition, then that's probably what I would do too. And I can see why it's the wrong thing to do. You know, why it's just going to sink her deeper into this hole, you know?
Yeah.
So there's
a little moment in the beginning of that book where I can't remember if it's the mother or the daughter character who have just kind of come back into the husband's life. But one of them is kind of looking disparagingly. Of course, like, you know, I only read this a month and a half ago. I can't even remember the names of any of the characters. So you might be able to fill those in. But one of them, she's starting to have a sort of, or maybe I think it's the mother. She's sort of saying, oh, she's a bit of a frump or something, or she's not much kind of thing. And then it says she sees this carefully darned sleeve on her jumper or something that she's been able to kind of mend something. And she thinks I might have to revise that view. And it's also there in like Monkey Grip, where so many things are falling apart all the time, and this, you know, young mother, I mean, it's completely shocking, you know, kind of, you know, this kind of kid wafting through these lives and needles everywhere, and, you know, mother kind of whacked out on speed and stuff.
I was going to say it's the heroine novel. I mean, that doesn't do it justice, but it's a novel in which most everybody has to do one thing or another. Yeah.
So, but even in that, there are these moments where she's darning or cleaning or something, where she kind of gets it together for a while. And she darns in that as well. I don't know, I think there's some sort of darning, weaving motif going through these, or something about as everything unravels, she can also ravel really things up again.
All right. Yeah. Okay. I love that. Okay. So Vanessa, that's an awesome note to end on, because that's a great way to think about why Garner, because everything has to be unraveled in order for the raveling to mean anything. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. So wait, I'm just going to say that Recall This Book is hosted by John Plotz and usually Elizabeth Ferry, with music by Eric Chaslow and Barbara Cassidy, sound editing by Claire Ogden, website design and social media by Callista Ross. And as you know, we always want to hear from you with comments, criticisms, suggestions for future episodes. And in this case, we want to hear from you about, you know, books that you have found comforting. So please email us or tweet at hashtag Books in Dark Times. And finally, if you enjoyed today's show, please be sure to rate a review or rate us on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever. So thank you so much for listening. And Vanessa, thank you. This was awesome.
It was great to talk to you. See ya.
See ya.